Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey for the last few years. So huge thank you to Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your music streaming platforms. Also, huge thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre and does great commission pieces of any type. So tonight we're going to be bringing on not just a dear friend, but our grand poobah here at United Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, and also happens to be the owner and director of the International Center for Alien Research, aka ICAR. And tonight he's going to be sharing stories from the vault. So let's bring him on and let's get the party started. Hello. I can't hear you. That's not going to be any fun. There we go.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
I just had it off from last night. I was talking with a director a few minutes ago, and he said if I told y'all some of this stuff, they might have to send the squad out for y'all. So just warning ahead of time. Your squad shows up at your house. It wasn't my fault.
That's not good when the squad gets involved.
Yes, because it could be some other kind of squad that we can't talk about.
Yeah.
So how's the weather up there in Canadian land?
It's been a beautiful day today. Can't say, best for everything going on behind the scene, but the day was beautiful. Got no chemtrails, got nothing funny.
It was 77 and sunny, and eggs are $2.99 a dozen.
Wow.
Ain't it nice to live where I live? If I would tell y'all, but I don't want y'all moving down.
Oh, no. I mean, here Canadian prices, they range anywhere from probably, I would say about $3. That would be like something that you don't know what's, I don't know. I don't want to go there. As high as like $8 a dozen, depending on, whether it's free range or not.
Well, I was having the aliens deliver them to me because I went to get, we don't even shop anymore. Just people, I've gotten lazy since I retired. We don't, we go online, we shop, we have it delivered to our house. That's a shame too, because they got to tote up 2 flights of stairs because my house is raised over the water. So,
oh, boy.
Yeah, but hey, such it is when you're retired. But it's a good place for watching UFOs. I got to tell you, UFOs, helicopters, fighter jets, they seem to all like to fly over the top of my house.
But you're close to you're on the Gulf, and you're also not far from the base in Florida.
Yeah, so right now, we'll talk about some stories that happen not far from here, but right just 20 miles east of where I am right now, west of where I am right now, is a NASA facility where all kind of weird stuff is happening.
Yeah.
10 miles east of me is a CB space, and then 5 miles after that is a National Guard base. 5 miles after that is Alvin Callender Field, which is a big, huge-ass Air Force base. But not too far after that, in Pascagoula, is a big Navy, not just any Navy base. They do all kind of top-secret stuff down there. Matter of fact, if you accidentally even get on their road, they pull you over, want to know what the hell you're doing there. That's before you get to the gate. Yes, they're very weird down there. Not too far from there, there's 2 more big bases in Alabama, and of course, there's Wings of Gold and Pensacola right down the coast. And then there's Eglin Air Force Base, which is 850 square miles of Well, God knows what's on that base. It's where they do all the non-nuclear testing of weapons for the United States.
Right.
I was like, wow. So all in between here is a whole smorgasbord of stuff that goes on, that we get reports on. One of my favorites, girl from Pensacola calls me, Joe, I've been listening to you talk. I think I have an alien problem. I said, you got a picture? She said, no, but I'm going to try to get some pictures. So she gets these weird looking blob things. Now she got a white picket fence, I guess 3.5 feet tall, somewhere right around there. And you're looking at the fence, and then all of a sudden you see like a gray like this.
Nice.
Like, so you kind of look back, you're like, no, that's bull, you know what? And then you look again, and there's like 3 of them. You're like, what the hell? And then they disappeared out of the film. Now, this ain't the first time I had this happen, but this was the very first time it ever happened to me.
Mm.
It's a me personally. We've had other issues where things inside a film disappeared. So what's funny about this is there's a friend of mine took a picture of it with his telephone, old school, and this back with the day of flip phones, by the way, people just give you some preference to this. He takes a picture of it. So we go to look on a flip phone, and they're there for all of about 30 seconds, and then they disappear.
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, there's some kind of BS hoax or something going on. So we stake out the place. Okay, us crazy aides, we get about 30 people. Like the aliens don't know we're there for, anyway. So we're staked out all over the place. We're gonna catch these aliens.
Yeah.
And then I hear the lady go, well, they're in the house. And I'm like, what? No, how did I get in the house? Because literally the house is surrounded at this point. So
boy.
everybody goes rushing into the house. And sure enough, if there's not this 3-foot gray standing in the middle of the house, it was almost like it was a joke. It was like, oh, you found me, really, huh? It was just look on his face like, I explained it like you are some stupid humans. And then poof, he was gone. He didn't run up any poles and disappear through no walls. He was just gone. Made me kind of think maybe it was a hologram or something. Not 100% sure. So everybody saw it. Not one person got a picture. No. Not one. As a matter of fact, I'm as guilty as anybody else. I didn't put any cameras up or anything else. I never even went to raise, because I had like 3 cameras on. We didn't raise not even one of them. Just shows you, though, because it startled you. You kind of like, so you kind of say, okay, we're gonna get these things for sure. We're gonna get these things on camera. So we set up trail cams all around the house, all inside the house. We just set them in random places on walls and stuff. Like if they could really pass through walls, maybe we would get one passing through. So the outside trail cams went off about 70 times. Mostly what we got was greenish, glowingish, kind of paranormal looking blobs. It kind of looked like a weird kind of fuzzy orb just pulsing as it went along. Couldn't tell you what it was. Didn't have no clue what it was. Somebody said they thought they seen a gray face, and I didn't see any gray face. I can't see that. So a friend of mine, he says, okay, we know where they are now. So he decides when he sees the camera start flashing, he's going to run real fast. Like he's going to try to run through the orbs. This is something out of Ghostbusters, man. He takes off. He's running. All of a sudden you see him hit the other side, and he's covered in it looked like gelatin is what it looked like. It looked like clear gelatin, like somebody was getting ready to make some jello and it was cleared. It's just like it was just poured all over. Had it analyzed. It just came back as a couple of different kind of glucose. It was nothing of any alien origin or any. I don't know what it was. And still today, so we even sent some to some of our paranormal friends because we hooked up paranormal researchers, and even they were kind of like, "You like ghost hunting?" I'm like, "No, we were alien hunting."
Yeah,
we were ghost hunting. But and then somebody said, "Well, could it have been a ghost of an alien gray?" I was like,
"That's possible."
I mean, anything is possible.
Through. Could be bleed.
Yes, it could have been a bleed through. But it's just a weird thing.
Yeah,
was there. So anyway, it goes quiet for like 2 years. She calls me. She's got pictures all over. I mean, literally, they're like sitting on a fence going through. I'm thinking, God, she's got to be faking this. I've never seen pictures this good before. Yeah. So we get down there. We're looking all over. We're not finding anything. No footprints. No nothing. Nothing's anywhere. And then somebody said they found what looked to be just three long fingers like wrapped around one of the fence boards. Like it was holding on to it. So you got a picture of that. So then we set up a couple of traps up around, a couple of cam traps around, and we weren't using flashes because we didn't want to startle whatever it was. And, some of them had flashes, but most of them didn't because there was a lot of ambient light in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And so got what looked to be, could have been 2 or 3 grays. And then we knew it was a hoax. You know how we knew it was a hoax? Because the last gray was doing this.
Nice.
So I'm not kidding you, people. We spent literally just, it was just like, and the girl was like, well, no, and she wasn't hoaxing. We never did find out who was hoaxing it, by the way. But it was a good hoax. I give him credit. And I actually had to find out how they did the disappearing stuff on the film. But once you, I forgot how it was, but once your finger touched it, exposed a certain amount of acid to it, it just, those images dissolved. Don't ask me, people. I'm not that kind of scientist anyway.
Right.
So that just, by the way, hacked me off. So then we decide, all right, we're going to go ahead and go looking for Ed Walters aliens and and the Hicks brothers aliens down there in Pascagoula. So we're like, okay.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
So we're going to go ahead. So we get down to Pensacola. We're all over Pensacola. We're talking to everybody. I'm fighting with MUFON all over the place. So I run across this couple who said they had been seeing this saucer way down. It's like in the middle of the sea. Pensacola's weird. There's the Gulf and then a back bay, then another back bay. And in between there's this, strips of land. So she was telling me about in between these 2 bays, this highway that runs through there. So we hop up one night and we're cruising, Headland in a car. We're cruising along about 70, 75. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. And you see something standing in the road. So at this point, I'm not kidding you. I'm reaching down for my pistol. My pistol. I got my pistol slid up against my leg and my hand on the emergency brake at the same time. So it's gonna be like pull the brake and pop, pop at the same time. So as we're coming up this thing, it's not moving, and I'm cruising still pretty good. I mean, I'm doing at least 50 at this point. And it stood there for a little while longer, and I slowed down to 30, and it just like stepped. It was like stepped off to the side of the road. Just one step, it stepped off. It was standing on the side of the road, and as I got right up on the side of it, it looked like maybe a 6-foot gray. So of course, the idiot me grabs the middle brake, slams it on, spins the car around, and hops out the car. Not with my gun sitting on the seat, and they're advanced aliens. I don't think pointing a gun at advanced aliens is a good idea. And maybe swinging it around the air, but not pointing them at them. I imagine if they really wanted to, they could do some serious harm to you. But anyway, I'm standing there looking at this thing going, this is fake. Got to be fake. So I'm going to walk up. And I'm the stupid one. Linda's the brave one, by the way. So I'm going to walk over this thing. Because it looked, I don't know. I wanted to see what it was. And it just it like stepped towards me and then over me. I was like, what the
hey?
Okay, yeah. I'm like, well, because so I looked over and I seen it there, and I seen something coming up the road, and it was probably, so the roads down there are probably about 20 foot wide from side to side. This thing was hanging over into the ditches, so I'm saying it was about 25 foot wide, probably about 15 or 18 foot tall, maybe 20. It's definitely a saucer. It actually looks like a Big Mac is what it looks like. It don't look like, I mean, really, that's what if I had to describe it, that's what I describe it as, like a Big Mac. So it had 2 layers, and it's cruising right up on us. And then I remember some weird sound. Then I remember sitting in my car, like 30 miles from where I was, and nothing's around. We're not even on the island anymore. We were actually on a whole different part of Pensacola. It's I was like, what the? And Linda and I got to talking about it. So I said, you know what? I said, Ed Walters is still living at his house. We're going to ride over there and go talk to the guy and see what he thinks. So we pull up to man's house, and it's full of light. I mean, it's just full of this bluish, greenish light. It's just full. And as we pull in the driveway, hop out the car. I got a camera, and I got a video camera. I'm like, oh, bleep, bleep, we're going to get something on camera. So I run over there, I'm beating on the door. I'm looking through the window, clicking. So, and then you see this puff, like just pop out the center of his roof. And everything went dark and quiet. Knock, knocking. Nobody's answering. And finally, here comes Ed to the door. All in shovels. He said he was on the floor. He said he knew what happened. He said first he thought maybe his house had been burgled or something. I told him what was going on. He said, well, we've seen that before. it like comes in, messes with everybody, and shakes everybody up, and then sets them down and takes off. And I was like, really? Because I had never heard that before. As a matter of
Wow.
fact, I haven't heard it since.
Now that's different.
So I'm kind of like, he's like, Joe, he said, I know you're an investigator and all. And he says, you work for, I said, I don't work for MUFON. At this time, ICAR didn't exist, by the way. So I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I said, I'm not going to say anything. If you don't want me to say anything, I'm not going to say anything about it. And we did both call Ed Walters and tell him, and he didn't know what to think about it either. So we staked out the house for 3 months.
And nothing.
And so we head on down. We left one guy though, just hanging out in Pensacola for shits and giggles, because there've been a lot of weird stuff going. Well, not so much Pensacola; it's on Navarre Beach. It's
right.
So it's Navarre and Gulf Breeze is what it is. Gulf Breeze is a sleepy little bedroom community off of Pensacola, on the edge of the bay, on the edge of the Gulf. It's it's just tiny little community. It's just.
But it isn't that far technically from the military base, right?
No. So that's the problem with Florida. You're never far from a military base in Florida, because first off, the Navy's got them. I like to say every 10 feet, but the Navy's got them about every 50, 100 miles is a Navy base, going all the way around Pensacola, all the way back up to the other side. Yeah. Same thing with the Air Force. Army does too. Pensacola is probably the most protected out of everything in the world. That place is probably more protected than anybody. I don't. Between that and the alligators, and now that big boa constrictors, they probably the safest place on the planet to live. There's nobody getting up in there, but it's scary. I mean, it's because right there, right where this stuff happens, this is Gulf Breeze, and then there's Navarre, and then there's Eglin Air Force Base. And Eglin Air Force Base is where we got a lot of footage of the saucers landing, and they're landing in the middle. So they got runways in the middle of the swamp. There's nothing around them. There's no highways to them either. They're just a runway in the middle. You can see them. Matter of fact, you can still see them on the maps today. From above, you'll see them. They're just a runway. You look at no roads, no nothing, no buildings. Something's landing there because you can tell they're being used.
Yes.
But I guess
are they ours, or are they,
maybe they're elevators or something. I have no idea what they are. But we have filmed many stuff out there. Scary, spooky, nasty.
Quick couple of questions. Does the light pick up the house or just the people in the house?
No, it just, you know what? It and I can only say it felt like this. So it felt like it was like a ball of plasma that engulfed the inside of the house. So in other words, even if you had your hand on your finger, you could actually feel it, but it wasn't like moving the brick, but the whole, it was like being filled with liquid, basically. But it really was. It was like a plasma. It just like the whole energy went through all at one time. And then it was like, because when it went back through the ceiling, it was like it was being sucked in and pulled up. So it must have came down and spread out. And then when it left, it came in and went up. I guess it was it was really, that's Rumble. Okay. It was spooky is all I can say.
Yeah. Well, it is down there because you have a blend of so many different things. Here's another question here as well from Lure. Joe, what was the American town that disappeared completely? They made a B-rank movie about it. Please.
Oh, I remember there's actually more than one too. You asked me, so it's going to go right out of my head, but there was actually more than one of them. It just disappeared. And then there was a couple that the military, for some reason or another, just took.
That happens a lot, though.
Just took. Well, some of them, like Love Canal, it was because it was contaminated, but there's been a couple.
Land between the lakes.
So this is a perfect instance. Right where I said, not far from where I live right now, is NASA. The big, huge NASA facility. Okay, it's where we used to test the Apollo engines at. Yep. So this place is huge. So when they built it, it took 4 cities over. Poof! The only thing that exists in these cities anymore is a water tower and graveyards. And I've talked to Michelle about some of these graveyards. These things are, they're 300 years old. They're wickedly haunted. And there's ones. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. But there's lots of. But that's all that's left. That you would have never known. Except you'll see like a little placard on the highway saying this used to be Unitesville or some other ville, and now they're gone, except for the graveyard. And they do maintain the graveyards, and if there's an old water tower, they'll keep it because NASA uses the water towers. But And there's some creepy stuff goes on back there in NASA.
Mm-hmm.
That base is where we seen, what was it then? So matter of fact, we had a Canuck with us that night.
Ooh,
And
is that right?
this was after Katrina. Well, after Katrina, I had put out a general SOS on the radio station. Anybody want a job, $1,000 a day, come down, we'll put you to work. Well, a good friend of mine, Mike, who lived in Saskatchewan, way in the top part of it, he said, it's freezing up here. I'm coming down to see, because it was like August for him. He hops on, he gets here. It's September 1st. It's 95 degrees out. It's 100% humidity. He's like, Jesus, Joe, you're trying to kill me. But anyway, we had him with us. It was him and I and Jason who passed recently. Matter of fact, both these guys are gone, which sucks. We're out in the middle of Honey Island Swamp, and it was just surreal. We're sitting there. We're doing laser things in the sky, and you see this. It looks like a little silver saucer cruising along, just minding its own little business. And then all of a sudden, you see what looks to be a little black triangle cruising along, minding its own business, all headed for the middle of NASA base. And then you see two F-16s and an F-22. And this is when the F-22s first came out. I think it was might have even been their first year flying. Just probably what you're supposed to be seeing, just putting along. Barely, even cruising. We got it on videotape, the whole damn thing. What it was, what was going on was strange. But see, that didn't even matter, because later that night, I guess that was like a marking or something. Said, hey, guess what? You just got screwed, because we lost 6 hours, 7 hours. We ended up in some place sitting in a what is it? Waffle House, eating breakfast. Have no idea how we got there. Nobody was drinking or anything. We just have no idea how we got there. We don't even know how we got to that exit, because it was like 30 miles past the exit we were supposed to get off on. Plus, I grew up over there, so I was quite familiar with the place. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Nobody wanted to get hypnotized, so it was just kind of like, But that was right after we had seen that stuff going through the swamp. And it's hard for people to understand, but like when you're in Honey Island, where we go, you're 12 miles back in the deep swamp. I mean, you're way the hell out there. It's as far as you can go by dirt road. Anything after that, you have to go by boat, which the swamp does get deeper, but you'll have to go by boat. It's a freaky, scary place. People have seen Indian tribes out there dancing when there was nothing there. You can hear it. You can hear music out there. You hear what sounds like Native Americans playing music. And there's nobody out there but you. I mean, there's a river that goes past, so it carries sound sometimes, but there's no Native Americans out there, not anymore. Maybe 200 years ago, but it's a very hot spot for UFOs. People see them a lot. But it was weird because
Stennis Space Center. Sorry, before I lose it. Is that near the Stennis Space Center?
Oh yeah, it's on the Stennis Space, and so that's what's so weird about Stennis. Stennis is a big facility, and then it has two incorporated zones, because the first time they had tested Apollo engine, it blew out windows almost to New Orleans. So they took two big, huge buffer zones. Well, we're allowed on the buffer zones. You can go in the buffer zones, and that's where we were. We were actually inside one of the buffer zones, 11 miles back, almost 12 miles back, up against the wall of NASA. So, which was all more woods and swamp going towards them. So we went all the way up. And there's a little creek river, and then there's a big river that kind of shadows you in, and then there's NASA on the other side. And you can sit back there and listen to them when they're testing engines and stuff. And matter of fact, a lot of times you can go watch them test engines. It's kind of weird how they do that. Hey guys, it's just weird. Who the hell keeps calling me? It's weird how they plus you get like every now and then you'll be sitting back there and you can feel a vibration in the ground coming from underground. You can tell it's something deep, some type of machinery. It's a deep kind of vibe. There's a lot of stuff goes on in that base. Plus, it's an oceanographic center too, and it's got a military base on it as well. Which I don't know where, but I know it's listed as part of their thing. There's a military base on it, probably a Navy base, or a Marine base. But still, it's all that around there is creepy. If the alligators and the owls and the hawks and the hogs don't get you, the aliens are going to. Or maybe some guy thinks he's playing Deliverance or something. So,
Get me started on the banjo music.
I'm just saying, people ask me all the time why I carry my gun. It's not because of the wild animals.
Yeah. We don't need to go there.
You don't know who you're going to run out in the middle of the swamp. So
Yeah. Tamara says, are there more UAPs now than regular saucers being spotted?
No, I don't really know. We were talking about this a couple weeks ago on one of the other shows, and so perfect example for y'all. We did a show just yesterday on show me a piece of evidence from the start of the 2000 until now that's bigger than any case from like the 50s, 60s, or 70s. Now there are two things in the 90s, but it's only two. But if you go back 50s, 60s, and 70s, there's literally dozens of cases. But if you come forward till now, it's not. So think about this. There are 5 billion people with cameras in their hand 24/7. Wow. All of them have cell phones. All of them know how to use them. And we're a picture-taking society. The whole world's up there. So why isn't there more pictures of aliens or UFOs? Why are there actually less pictures of UFOs today than there was in the 70s? When there were very few cameras running around. So what's the last case you remember? What's the most popular case that you can remember in recent times? And that would probably be the Phoenix Lights.
That's a big one. That's
It's mid-90s. Yeah, mid-90s, 30 years ago. That's what I'm saying. Before that, you'd have to go back almost another 20 years. So all the big cases that were in the 60s and 70s are all like Travis Walton, and all of them were in the 70s. Betty Barney Hill, late 60s. So those are big cases. Roswell was in the 50s. But tell me what's in the 20s. I'm curious, people. I'm a researcher who does this full time with a whole buttload of people helping me. And you know how many I can think of?
In the 20s, yeah.
Yeah, so Stevensville was in the 2000s. But Stevensville, we debunked. Unfortunately for us, we went out there to prove it was real and ended up we didn't debunk. It was a real case. It just was ours. It was an Aurora. It wasn't an alien. It wasn't even that hard to prove either. That was the sad part. But what it is what it is. But other than that, there's nothing. Has the aliens gotten smarter? Do they know we have all these cameras? Do they know our society is more savvy to extraterrestrials? What is it? It's not just us, it's around the world. Have we just got bored and don't want to talk about aliens anymore? Is that what it is?
They're out there. I mean, let's put it this way. Do you think, everyone's got a camera phone for the most part. Do you think like now it's just become so mainstream that it's more accepted and not as big of a thing because it's not as...
Well, that could be true. But I mean, if it was still a big case, it would still go viral. None of them go viral these days. Nothing.
Yeah.
Not any abduction cases, not any alien cases. I mean, of course, we got Elon Musk is going to Mars. We got people going to the moon. I mean, what is it?
Right.
Actually, the best Mexico City sighting was in 1996. It was seen by 1.1 million people, including the mayor, the police chief, Jaime Maussan, and a few others. But this is another question for you. And this goes for all cases, by the way. So in that case in Mexico City, there was 22 million people there. Only 1.1 million people said. Plus, it was on TV. People were talking about it on TV. People on the rooftop looking at it, but only some people saw it. Same thing with Phoenix Lights. 2 million people living there. Less than 17,000 saw it. What's up with that? And it's not just that. There's lots of cases like these where the Belgium triangles, stuff in England, you're going to find out that the minority of people saw it, even though some of it was being broadcast on television while it was going on. Still. So it goes back to a theory I've always had. I don't think anyone can see an extraterrestrial craft. If they could, there would be far more pictures of them than there are today because we know the amount of abductions that go on. So we know the amount of craft that are being moved around. And the fact that they're not being seen except by people who have had experiences says a lot. Plus, those people are less likely to talk about it too, by the way. If they're a full-blown contactee and knows what's going on, they're probably only going to talk to other people in the field. They're probably not going to talk to people outside the field. Not about that anyway. So
do you think Blue Beam is still relevant?
It is. Well, Blue Beam's kind of transformed now. Let's say it started out a certain relevancy and now it's moved because with the addition of drones, Blue Beam has become something much different. and actually much more believable. I've only seen 4 examples of it, and I have to say one of them was of a ship, and it was fabulous. You would have had to get directly underneath it to know it wasn't real. I mean, I was looking through it with binoculars, and it looked real. But it's there's a lot of this stuff going on. There's a lot of projects that transform. It's kind of like when you think about remote viewers. Well, they're not really in the remote view anymore. They're in telepathy. So it's just kind of transformed from one gift to another. One's just more advanced than the other. It's the same thing adding drones to holograms. Especially if you have hologram things on board the drones. I mean, Jesus, it's going to make things it's going to be hard to see through. Yeah, these kind of technologies scare me a little bit because we have AI now that we can add into all of that.
That's a tough one.
So you have Blue Beam, the drones, and AI. Ooh, man, for the average person, they're going to think it's real. Even if it's not, they're going to think it's real. So that presents another problem. So are things we see in real or something else? It's some of these cases so you have to go back to the old cases to hunt real evidence because, like I said, today there are contactees that come forward all the time or abductees and stuff like that. But basically, most of that is still the same stuff. I mean, same type things go on, same type of abductions go on, different ideas on what the message is to them. That's always been like that.
Yeah,
it's always confused me a little bit because if you listen to different messages from different groups, there's definitely a theme, but there's definitely a disagreement on what the messages are. Whether you're way over to the New Age side or whether you're way over to the science side, I'm sure it's something in the middle somewhere. But you're always going to have your people that swing to extremes.
What about this is the one that's in the news. Okay, freaking Katy Perry. Blue Origin, was it faked? I'm curious because the footage, also the dragon kept bringing NASA home. These videos are kind of hard to trust.
Okay, so let's look at this a different way.
Pod. Come on.
So let's look at the giant dildo that went up to space, which is just weird to start off with. I'm sorry, I have to say that because that's what it looks like, and that's 90% of the comments start out with that. So anyway, so first thing you notice when it has no flame mark, no scorch marks. So it didn't go into space. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you're not an astronaut just because you go up into the clouds. All right. So in case you've never paid attention to NASA, when they're launching their space shuttles, the guys up front driving are astronauts. The guys in the back are mission specialists. Okay. That's what they call them. They don't call them astronauts because they're really not trained. Astronauts kind of tend to know how to fly things and do other things. But anyway, long story short, you actually have to go into space. Like the woman who just got stranded up there, the woman with the big hairdo going all over, was hilariously funny. She looked like a whirly bird in space. And she was in space. And you could tell by just looking at her, she was in space. Even her skin was sagging outward. These guys, so if you go into space and you come back, you have to go through what we call reentry. I would not use that capsule to go through reentry. Not with all them big windows on it. That thing's just scary. I don't know if it could take it. Plus, that door looked kind of flimsy when it opened by accident, when it wasn't supposed to. That was a little kind of strange, too. But regardless, there is not a scorch mark on it, which means it did not come through reentry, which means it did not go into space. It went to the very top of the atmosphere, and it hung there. Now, I've been at 84,000 feet in a fighter jet, and it looked pretty much like that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking, no, they went right to the edge, but they didn't go into space because they would have had to come back and do a reentry, which means some type of controlled flight. Remember, there is no instruments in this thing at all with these ladies. None. Nobody in there was trained to do anything because it keeps saying it's a mission. No, it's not a mission if you don't do anything. So I try to get to so what they were is passengers. They're not astronauts. So when you fly from New York to Toronto in your jet, are you a pilot? No, you're a passenger. The pilot's the pilot. You're just a passenger. So in this case, that's what these ladies were. They were just passengers, nothing special. The guy who went from Russia and spent some time on the space station, paid $20 million to do it, he was a passenger. He was never called an astronaut. He was called a passenger. And that's what these are. These are Jeff Bezos. This is Jeff Bezos' little tour bot thing. So they would be considered passengers. But there was some other things like lack of footage from the inside. The little seatbelt thingy they had on looked flimsy at best. And the door thing bothered me when they said, oh, no, it's a pressure type door. It can't be open. So Here's something for you people who are maybe not space nuts. You know, this capsule was pressurized, right? So it had to be pressurized to go into space so these people could breathe because, you know, after a while they'd run out of oxygen. So it was pressurized. So a door. So if it's really pressurized, it means the air pressure is pushing against the door. So it shouldn't have just popped open like that.
Right.
And if it did, some miraculously way, somehow it opened being pressurized, you should at least seen it like the difference in air coming out of the craft, which it did. None of it. And then Jeff Bezos opened it. Parts of this, I hate to say, look staged. You know, it's hard to say you staged it, but, you know, they didn't show them getting in and being strapped down. So when they showed astronauts, they usually show them being strapped down and put in, and then they show them being unstrapped coming out. So they were already unstrapped, walking around in the craft. That's a no-no to start off with.
Yeah. Helmet with all that pretty hair. I mean, I don't know.
You know, and then, so it's not hard to fake weightlessness. Plus, these days, you can, if you want, you can rent a 747 and experience it for yourself far cheaper than you can being shot up in a giant, you know what. So it's, take it for this, people. One, I found it to be just a tad bit sexist. You know, I thought we were past the age of this, but I guess not. On top of that, is that the best 6 people you could find to go to space? I mean, Gail King is. I'm not a big Katie. I mean, so I don't. I mean, she's not even relevant because she's on her way out. Her ratings are down. And then Katy Perry, I couldn't even tell you the last time I heard anything from her and her little kissing flowers and stuff. His wife, I'm not even going to say anything about her because I use Amazon.
Yeah, so, exactly. We're just going to leave that one right there and go on to
the other 2. I don't even know who they were, in all fairness to them. But I didn't see any scientists on board, no pilots, nobody.
Yeah.
This was just, they stuck 6 women in a capsule and they named it Sheep, the new Sheep. You know, it didn't say, it was supposed to say Shepherd. It just said
Did you all see the crest? Did you all see the crest?
Oh, yes, the devil worship thing. So that's another problem.
Yeah.
So they're all wearing this little devil worship patch on their Actually, it's not the devil worship. It's the Bible thing. It's one of the
Baphomet or is it Moloch? One of the 2.
Yeah, it's one of the ones out of the Bible, out of the other Bible people. Not the regular Bible. Jesus.
Yeah.
But anyway. So, I mean, the whole thing just stank. It was funny.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't think anybody realized how mad it was going to make everybody. I mean, people are pissed about this.
Oh, yeah.
Yet again, they're like, you see, the rich people just don't understand. This is, you know, we don't care what you're doing. If you want to send somebody to space, send us. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
So it could have been much more adventurous. Could you just see, we'll send Amelia to space. that would be good. It'd be fun to watch. Michael wouldn't fit in the spacecraft, but you know, I would have liked to see just normal everyday people go. I would have rather seen their reactions because for some reason the reactions of Gail and what's her face just felt phony, staged. It just didn't feel real to me. Not like that first group of people that went up. They see when Captain Kirk, when he was like insane when he came down, he's like, you know, I don't know.
I know.
I don't want to say it was fake people, but it was borderline. I have to tell you
It
was.
More
something
questions.
about the whole thing is funny. But hey, believe what you don't believe.
Counting being on a Gray's ship, how far do you think you have gone outside the solar system? Jupiter, Mars, Saskatchewan. We know that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, because my phone. Get this, people. I got. It don't matter what I don't know how many cell phones I use. So every now and then, it's not just mine. Sometimes I'll get my phone. Will say, "You're in Saskatchewan at 5,000 feet." I'm like, "Boy." I'm looking around in my house going,
I couldn't stop laughing.
I'm about 10 feet off the ground. And I'm thinking,
yeah,
no way. And then it'll go off. It's my GPS and your phone. It's where it tells me where I'm at. And it does that from time to time. Just randomly. We were actually in DC. I was giving a lecture in DC.
Yeah, it was funny.
And Steve picks up the phone and said, "You said, Joe, your phone says you're in Saskatchewan." I said, "I guess you're being probed with me, Steve." He just looked at me like, "What?"
I know.
I said, "It's a weird thing. I don't know what it is." I said, "Why Saskatchewan? What's up there?" You know, I've never been up to the damn place as far as I know. All I hear is there's ice up there, so I don't have any plans on going anytime
There's
soon.
not. There's just a lot of cornfields.
Yeah, well, see, I don't even go up there for sure. I can see that down here.
Like some crop circles or something, you know.
Maybe so. It's
yeah.
Well, no, Tamara, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what phone it is. I've had it on my Apple phones. I've had it on my Samsung phones. I've had it on my Droids. I've had it on my Ones. I've had it on my Motos. It's
Mm.
it's just some.
You
I'll
don't
be
know.
usually it's when we're quiet sitting around in the house just watching TV. You'll hear a ding and it says GPS location, Saskatchewan, Canada. You're
Mhm.
currently at 5,000 feet. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
5,000. And it's always 5,000 feet. It's like they have some. So one of these days, I'm going to get brave and fly myself up there and see what I can find. When
Corn.
the revolution starts between Canada and America, I'm going to sneak across the border in my little biplane, see what I can find.
Corn. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
more corn. Hey, if I see a little crop circle of corn, I'll know I'm in the right place.
But
I've mapped it out on a GPS, so I know where the location is now by longitude and latitude, and it's always the same place.
mm,
I've actually looked it up on a map. It's basically middle of nowhere.
mm,
Uh, I look at it
yeah.
and I'm like, really? Hey, it could be higher up where it's colder, where Cougar lives. She lives in some place where it's 60 below. I'm like, why do you live there?
Ugh.
Even the aliens don't go there.
So let's talk about some of the what's the most hard court case that's come to ICAR?
In what way? There's been a lot.
That left you just kind of going like holy. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them are holy crap because these are primarily
Well,
experiencers. Like, explain what is ICAR exactly? I mean, the
ICAR is the International Community for Alien Research, which actually its name's being changed. That's going to be voted on down the line, but it's so what we actually do is we do a comparison study on alien abductions. So we're trying to give alien abductions a way to go in the world and say, hey, you know what? There's real evidence for this, not just circumstantial bullshit, but real
Mm,
evidence. We also started about 15 years ago trying to find a way to find people who have been contacted that don't know. So
mhm,
remember, for us, 98% of the people on the planet who've been taken never know and never gonna know.
mhm,
So if you go on our website, you'll notice there's stuff on there. It helps to trigger memories for people who may have something underlying. I mean, the fact that you like paranormal, anything paranormal, increases your chance of being an abductee by like 100%.
mm,
If you're and the more you dig into, you're into, especially the harder stuff, like you start looking for vampires and
mhm,
different types of entities in it, it's even more of a chance that you are. And if you've jumped religion several times, it's even more of a chance you are, because
mhm,
you're looking. You're looking for something. You don't know what it is because it's subconscious. It's in the back of your head and it's pushing. You can feel it behind your eyes. You know there's something there and you're looking. And most people end up in the paranormal fields chasing ghosts, which I have a lot of friends that
mhm,
chase ghosts. So I'm going to pick on them about it, even though it's
mhm.
dimensional bleed through. But still, we're not going to pick on them.
Dimensional bleed through. We can go there. Get me going.
No, I know we're not
I'm
going.
all about it.
It's we're not getting this. People don't even ask what dimensional bleed through is because we'll be here for an hour.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, but anyway, a lot of people end up in those fields. So one of the cases I had gotten was this woman kept seeing, she kept describing this just horrible event, and I was like, and it was starting to freak me out. I was thinking, oh, maybe she's like some psychopath killer or something like that.
Mm,
And she said, no, you got to come, you got to come, you got to come, you got to come, you got to come. So I said, all right. We brought just a team of three, and we got out there. And this house just had this. If there was a house that was haunted, it was this freaking place. So I'm
mhm.
thinking, oh, it's got ghosties and aliens. What a variety of life this has to be.
But that's usually the way.
Well, it's like a push in most cases. Like
Yeah.
one's pushing against the other, but they're usually not there at the same exact time. I mean,
Mm,
they're there at the same time, but not actually active at the same time usually.
mhm.
So
Right.
it's kind of weird. In this case, it almost seemed like the gray was tormenting the dead person.
Hmm.
It's so there's a point where all this is going on, and we're all sitting in this living room. There's five of us sitting on this floor in this living room, and you see what looks to be just a standard everyday 3 foot gray come walking in through the wall, and he comes standing in the middle of everybody, kind of like looking around. He starts
Mm,
pointing towards this, and he looked fucking translucent, by the way. Excuse my language, but
mhm,
anyway, he starts pointing to this corner. And you start to see what appears to be, I don't know, a kid, maybe 7, maybe 8, start to appear. And then you start to see the Gray's hand start to vibrate, It's like he's pointing. The more he vibrated, the more the kid did, until the kid literally flew apart. And I don't mean like melted apart. I mean flew apart in pieces. And what was weird, for just an instant of a second, you could see splatter on the walls, and then it was gone. So then, after that, most everybody just freaked out and ran out the house. And I'm just sitting there looking at this thing like, and what is this supposed? Because, as far as I know, Grays don't do that kind of crap. And so the whole time I'm thinking, what is this? And then it kind of faded. And then here comes Raymond running in with a black light, scanning the walls. And guess what's on the walls? Dots. So he actually took samples, and it was blood. The doctor figured it was some child around 5 to 7 years old's blood. They even knew the type. And I was like, and then like 2 days later, the chef shows up, wanting to know all kind of information. We told him everything we knew. I said, look, I just got invited here a couple of days ago. Don't be looking to arrest my ass.
Wow.
And so according to him, the child went missing in, I think, 1899, 2 years after the house was built.
That's insane.
Said it's been a case, it's been on, because every now and then somebody says they see something or someone in the yard, so the case file stays up, as I forgot what he called it. And thinking the whole time, I'm like, but still, it doesn't solve anything. It's still in the back of my head. Still, that was the last thing we seen out of that thing, was doing that. Now, we have heard on ships about people's limbs being removed and put back, and and stuff. So we've actually brought that tested. On one occasion, I forgot the guy's name. We actually brought him to the alien hunter guy, and we got him tested. And on his right arm, he said it had been severed here, and at the shoulder. And the doctor said, well, whoever put it back did a fabulous job. He said, because there's no seam mark. He said, but on each one right next to where the seam mark should be, there's like a slash with a line through it, like someone's signature. So, like, the Gray signed it. Hi, ding-a-ling, I'm the Gray. It's weird because we got pictures of it, and it's this weird. It looks like a little signature, like somebody. Actually, looks like somebody who couldn't read in the old days would sign with an X. It kind of looked like that. Very creepy, very weird. But it's there. All the implants we've ever had the privilege of taking with happened to be government. So, except there was one that moved. You'd say push it, you'd push it, and it would it would pull your fingers along with it. It was creepy, weird.
It is creepy. Tamara says, what race of aliens take most or abduct the most?
Right now, it's the Grays. Right. It's the Grays.
So I'll expand. And why?
Yeah, so in the old days, before the Grays came here, the reptilians and humans had pretty much split up the society 50-50, because the Grays are what gave us sentient. Not the Grays, I'm sorry. The reptilians is what gave our species sentient. When it interbred with the Anunnaki's children and all of them, those kids became self-aware because of the reptilians section was now in their brain. Before that, they were just a slave race. The Grays came in after that.
The ancient Sumerians had a lot of depictions, petroglyphs or statues of reptilians.
Yeah, so when you go back, there's a couple things you can look up, ladies and gents. So the Sumerians, first thing they talk about, very beginning of their time, someone came here they said from the heavens, but they came here, but for some reason they couldn't live outside. They couldn't breathe our atmosphere. So they built 2 great white dome cities. There's actually drawings of these cities, by the way, so you can see them for yourselves. They said that race created a race just like themselves, but could breathe the atmosphere. But that race decided, well, why are we out here plowing and raping and sowing the fields? We're omnipotent super beings ourselves. So they created what the Sumerians like to call the 7 creations of man, which means the man before us was their last creation and our current ancestor.
So is that like our missing link, sort of?
Yeah, it is. It is really kind of, because when you look at the Sumerians, they talk about bird-headed and wolf-headed. They tried all kind of combinations to make a slave race, but they ended up with something closer to what they look like the human aliens. So they created that race, and that race was very subservient. It would plow the fields. It would mine the mines. It would procreate and have children and keep the herd up. And then, for some reason, the Nemos, the Dogon talk about the Nemos, the reptilians, They just decided one day to go down there and start stealing women, raping them, and bringing them back pregnant. When those women were born, and see, when I heard the story, I thought they were going to look different, but that's not what went on. The children that were born looked just like the other ones, except they didn't just do what they were told.
Free will.
They had free will. And reptilians also, section astro, helps regulate our body functions at a much better rate. So it actually enhanced us. So it made us a little healthier and stronger and more like F you. You go plow the damn field. I ain't play. What am I? Are you going to pay me to plow? I mean, that's basically what came out of this.
Free
and
will.
We do know that there had been after that there was there's a big lots of fighting going on in that particular part of the world. Matter of fact, pretty much ever since there's been pretty much revolution after revolution in that part of the world. So, and a lot of people don't believe we have a reptilian section in our brain, but that's the race. So once the reptilians bred with that race, that created us, the current race. Somewhere along the line, I could even play it. I'll find it in a minute. I got to think about RH negative, but somewhere along the line, the Greys came in. We figure the first time we see the Greys in hieroglyphics was about 200 or 300 years before Christ. After that, you see them all over the place, and then the reptilians go from being revered and happy in the great gods to being the bad, evil gods. Of course, here comes Adam and Eve, and the serpent got them thrown out of the Garden of Eden. So they got kind of kicked to the curb. But we also know the South Americans loved the reptilians. Their major god was a reptilian. A lot of the old gods before the Christian gods were reptilian. So,
well, I mean, you see depictions of that even in Peru, where they have a statue erected in that town. You and I did a show in the Gray Zone Uncensored about this, but the reptilians took the people, like the locals underground because of cataclysm, and they took care of them. They educated them. Like I think the relationships are different. And you look at the temples down there, and you see the serpent gods, and you see reptilian gods. Like, it was just a lot more. Was it more accepted back then, you think?
I think it was. I think the reptilians were more open. I think that the human gods were too. I think in the beginning, when they were Sumerian, when they were ruling Samaria, they were open about who they were. And we know the human gods had to have been at least ruling parts of Egypt, because they described them with the long back heads and all, just like the humans are described as. So, it's when I first heard it, it's this disease. It said, but then it happens to happen just in pharaohs mostly. And of course, that's where those gods would have been as pharaohs. So all that made sense. And then somewhere along the line, the Greys showed up, and guess what? There was no more playing God anymore. The Greys were like, you're not supposed to be doing this. Shame, shame. Greys are like, shame on you. So we're going to take you.
Greys.
I know. They said, shame. So you're no longer going to be allowed to do the majority of abduction. Greys took over about. I think the reptilians they do about 15% each now. Maybe we'll be nice to say 20% each, and the Greys do 60%. They took over the whole project, whatever the damn project was. They said, guess what?
Okay, so which one was responsible for the negative blood type?
Well, let's look at it this way.
That's a hypothesis.
No. So this is a good one. So let's just assume, which is a bad word, but let's just assume that the human aliens were A, and the reptilians later on were B, and then when the Greys entered the Deuce, because we know they were much later on, and we also know RH negative came much later on, they were O, and they carried the O negative with them. So then you had the three blood types, and now you have the reversion into O negative, which is, frankly, without it, we would be a lost species. I mean, all of our hematological research comes from there. It's the universal donor. I mean, there's so much it does for us.
Also, apparently, because I know many who are they're the sickliest as well, and also
not O negative people. They rarely get sick.
No,
they're one of the. Oh yeah.
No. I know.
What do you mean? I am one. It's worse than that. Almost everybody I know who's O negative never gets sick.
I know many O negatives.
But that's why they're the universal donor, because that's why they don't get sick, because they're the universal donor. They couldn't. Now, by saying that, there are some that do get sick, but I'm not going to say, because I don't want to pick on anybody's blood type.
Yeah. Wow.
No. There are three blood types, and you can go read it. It's actually on the ICAR site, because when we did we had these three hematologists work with us, they actually put them in place for people. Oh, you mean the healthiest? The healthiest is O positive and A positive. they are by far the healthiest people on the planet. By
And
far.
some say the rarest of that line are the A's.
And,
The most versatile is the O, but the rarest would be the A negative.
well, that's not true because A can take O negative. O negative can't take A. So that means
O negative can't take anything, but
O negative.
negative,
That's the problem. So A negative,
any
A
negative.
B.
Yeah.
So we'll just be clear. A B negative and positive make up about 1.5% of the blood types, and they can take O negative, but O negative can't take them. So that would mean technically they're 8.5% because they can take O negative. And remember, it's not actually the blood they're taking; it's the plasma.
Yeah. I guess it depends on which researcher you're asking, because
So it's just, well, we got the top 3 in the country at the time. We got really lucky because I lied my what off. Didn't tell him it had anything to do with aliens. The guy was so fascinated with the data I was giving from South America and stuff like that. He was so fascinated. They just got into it.
Yeah,
and then I just told him one day what we were going to use it for, and he was like, "Well, if it helps you out." He didn't want his name involved in that part, but he said, "If it's going to help you out, go for it." Because people, do you realize that South America and Central America is 98% O? Nowhere else in the world's anywhere like that. That's got to be almost pure inbreeding. I mean, how can you even have that? Nowhere else, every else in the world, it's 37% this, 35% that, 14% this, 7% that, 3% that. It's how can you have that? What caused that? And remember, a lot of them have a different shaped skull than we do. So they're all one blood type, and they have a different shaped skull. And I'll be thinking they might be some aliens down in South America.
Lyra, we are getting to questions, but we have to go with the flow a little bit. So it's taking us a bit. We're on 8 different platforms. So you're seeing 1, but we have another 7. So, but okay, I think I could probably get to it now before we get too far ahead. In Greek mythology, Dr. Rita Louise talks about this, by the way. Check out her interviews in our archives. In Greek mythology, and Egyptian minotaurs were still around. Could this have been one of the last creations of man? She talks really heavily about mythology and extraterrestrials and connections and things like that. So,
well, because so much of it ties together. I mean, one of the things I tell people when they ask me, where should I start research? Oh, in the ancient world, that's where you should start. Because one, anything flying in the skies after 200 years ago, well, obviously is not us, because we didn't have that kind of technology. I mean, when did I think somewhere 1750 was when the first hot air balloon went up? I'd have to go double check, but anything before that, flying around the skies, it's a big interest because, frankly, we didn't have that kind of technology. And as far as we know, no one else back then had that technology, so it's a good place to start. Plus, a lot of stuff you hear, especially in places like Scotland, Ireland, in the Welsh part of it, and on the island itself, there's a lot. The English island is a control group, as best we can do. So when we're doing abduction research, we really look at Britain as a control group for the extraterrestrials, not for us. We think they use it as a control group because there's a certain type of abduction that goes on there for the most part, and versus what goes on with everybody else. It's actually different. It's the only place in the world that is different, at least that we can find. And so if you live in England and you are an abductee, you're experiencing, especially if you listen to us talk, you're going to notice that most of your abductions are different than other people's are. Plus, they still have what we would consider hostile abductions in Britain, whereas most of the rest of the planet is not experiencing that. It's not that I'm not saying that it's good, because anytime somebody takes you against your will without asking you, it's never a good thing. But there's different ways that you can experience a contact. And for some reason, the British, because they're the control group, get the shaft as nicely as I can put it. And I love you, Brits, because we have a huge audience there. But we found this out by accident. And then as we went along, we realized it happened more and more and more. It's like, so if you're an abductee, not a contactee, but if you're an abductee, if you're a contactee too, and you can't seem to get things out of your head, you can't reset. So I can't say this on air. There are 3 places in the United States that are null zones. For some reason, the extraterrestrials have no effect there. None at all. And you can drive in there and see. It's hard to explain this, but all contactees and all abductees, in the back of their head, true gray or whatever alien is always in contact with you. Always. They may not be actively using it, they may not be looking through your eyes, but they're always there. Most of the contactees and abductees can sense it. It makes them a little antsy sometimes, it makes them a little squirrely sometimes, because they can sense that in the back of their head. You know, it's like you feel like somebody's watching you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a paranoia that really shouldn't be there, because when you look around in your life, there's nothing for you to think that anyone would be watching you all the time. But they are. They're there.
Mm-hmm.
And any true contactee knows that, or any true abductee knows that. It's one of the things we use for criteria, because if you're not experiencing that, odds are you haven't been taken, because you start pre-birth until death, unless you get to a point in your 30s where you're not really useful anymore, but your kids are. Then they stop taking you and they start taking your kids. Or they've already been taking your kids. They just stop
Well,
taking you.
it's generational contact, right?
Well,
So,
some people they'll take forever, especially people they plan on taking off
I mean,
world.
I'm a generational, so yeah.
You know, so those kind of people, because they have, so like we're going to just use Michelle since she's sitting right here. We're going to use and abuse her. So one day when Michelle gets old and rinkety and crinkety, and she's about to crick over, ET is going to zone in on her. So they have 3 days from the time she dies to retrieve what you would consider her soul. So what they do is they have the ability to upload your consciousness into a computer, on a hard drive, into a hologram, or into another being. They have the option to do all of them. All of them are going to end up in the same place.
Do you think that's what bodies are? Our vessels?
Yeah. So that's what they are. So eventually, even if you're uploaded to the hologram for the meanwhile, sooner or later you're going to be back in a body, because that's what you're there for.
Mm-hmm.
And each time you get a body, it's an upgraded body. The consciousness is upgraded. You have more abilities. You'll be able to use a telepathic abilities, psychic
So
abilities.
a different term too, like a whole
Yeah.
different
So usually
to go to the light.
Well, usually they take you to another world, is what they're doing. So this is a way of taking people without doing harm to the loved ones here. Because if it was up to them, they would just take whoever they wanted and bring them to wherever they're going. But they don't want to do that, because it causes too many questions and causes too much harm in families, which show in some ways they do care at least a little bit. But they do take you anyway. And it's an ideal way to do it. You're no longer there. As far as anybody on this planet is concerned, you're dead. And the only thing I don't think is fair about it is, if you want to cross over, do they have the right to just take you? You know, because some people might want to cross over.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think all races do that. I think it's certain races. I mean, there are many who are much more benevolent.
Okay, Chicky, there's only 3 races that come to this planet that can even allow to abduct. To take your choice. They're not allowed to. If the Greys seen a race here that didn't belong here, they would melt them. Council does not allow random visitations to planet Earth. We're still considered, how can I say this? We're still considered ignorant, I guess is the best way I can say it. First off, there's only 6 races that there's even evidence for of any kind on this planet. And I mean evidence, not just.
Yeah, but even Paul Hillier had said that there are, the ex defense minister of Canada said that there were considerably more races. And
Paul Hillier is an idiot. Yes, and he's an idiot. So is Dr. Greer. Well, good for him, but Dr. Greer said the same thing. No, just because you did don't mean you know. So in this case, this was something they used.
Oh boy!
But evidence doesn't back that up. And we're talking 60 years worth of evidence, does not back that up. So if you listen to like what the ex-president said, different people say, they'll tell you that, first off, there's only 3 races that are doing any abductions on this planet. The other 4th race is the tall whites who are out at Area 54. Of course, there's the light beings who really don't visit Earth. They just kind of hang out a little bit. And there's a cleanup crew. But other than that, there's nobody else allowed here, because frankly, they can't be trusted to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So think about if there was 56 types of aliens running around this planet. Half of them would already been caught, been used, been tortured, been abused, not including how many humans they may have tortured and abused along the way. That's why there's a council. That's why you did these. So this is just basically a closed planet. Probably will be a closed planet for another 500 million years, until we're old enough to get out into space. I don't think they allow any visitation. And frankly, if you go by what the Greys and Reptilians say, they're here by accident. They're not even supposed to be here. But the dumbass is interbred with us, so we're stuck. And that's the only reason they stay here, is because you have a species now that came from whatever they used initially to make us. Then you have the human aliens, the reptilians, and now the grays mixed into our blood. One of these days, we're going to become a super race. The real question is, are we going to become a super race that's friendly, or are we going to become our nature on this planet? And
Or are you could be integrated into AI, which is something entirely different?
maybe, but I don't see humans going for that because humans are too egotistical.
Yeah, I may not have much option.
You know, well, that's possible, but you never know. We have other AI hasn't really taken any other races over, so I'm not so much worried about it taking us over. So, I look at things differently because there are advanced races out there that survive nuclear destruction, survived AI, survived chemical warfare. So I know we can do it, but the problem is so when you go for witnesses and you talk to witnesses, they're really only going to describe those types of aliens. Now they might say he was white or blue because actually the true color of a gray is blue. He's not even gray. That's the other one of those old wives' tales. There's actually 3 colors of grays and there's 4 or 5 heights of grays. So when you get in it, and then reptilians themselves, the reptilians come in a buttload of colors, and they all kind of other things, but they're the same species. But some have wings, some have gills, some have bows, some have other appendages, some have more than 2 arms. I mean, they're all different tribes. According to them, there's at least 12 or 14 tribes. Each one of those tribes is different, but they all come from the same species. Same thing with the gray. They all come from the same species. They're just maybe modified for different races. The grays are very protective of Earth. According to them themselves and their contactees, they will tell you they are extremely protective of this. Matter of fact, they almost interfered with Charles Hall's tall whites because they weren't supposed to be here, but they're using the planet as a jump off spot to go somewhere else deeper into space. Since they had made an arrangement with our government, the Greys left it alone, but the Greys didn't want them here. They wanted to throw them off the planet. They just feel like we're not ready for that kind of contact yet. And I don't blame them. We're not. I mean, let's be honest. We can't even get along. There's 200 countries on this planet, and we can't even get along with them. And we're going to introduce 200,000 new worlds. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work really well. And that's the other problem. You can't let one come without letting the other one come. So there's at least 200,000 worlds in that or more.
What about the tall whites? I mean, there's a strong connection to the tall whites, and people see them all the time.
Charles whites are tall. That is Charles Hall's tall whites. That's what they are. And they are limited in number, and they're very crankety ass species sometimes. Well, they're not so much as their kids are. And remember, the taller they are, the older they are. So when you meet the really, really tall ones, they're really, really old. Makes them a little cranky sometimes. There's quite a few people got in great detail about them, but they're pretty much confined to most of the same area. Every now and then they venture out because they like to go out and see new things. That's their words. That's how they ended up in the casinos in Vegas because they were bored. I imagine when you're sitting on Area 54 or Area 53 and it's all you get to see is desert, you want to get out and do something. But we have several witnesses of them at the casinos and other places. We've got some evidence of them being in D.C. But when you go to D.C. itself, so I've got a lot of insiders in D.C. So I asked about Valiant Thor's race. Is that a real race? They're like, no, that was us. That was just one of those things that was us. He said, as far as he knows, there's 5 types of aliens on this planet. All of them have several agendas, and they pretty much all work for the council. He said the human race is not allowed to interfere, or they're invited to the council, not rulers, by the way. So if you ask contactees, they'll tell you this to any of the ones that have been. So some get invited to just go hang out at the council. They let you stand around, watch how it goes on, listen. They get a little translator device. It's kind of cool, actually, from what I understand. But they allow them to go there, but they don't allow any of our politicians to go. And they don't allow any interaction with extraterrestrials and our politicians at all. No. They can get you tossed. And because our politicians are just not trustworthy.
So I guess that answers this question. If the U.S. president said to the tall white, get off the planet, would the Greys throw them off?
No, they would throw the president off, but
all right.
It's look, so it's funny you bring that up because there was a survey we had did, God, I think it was 98 or 99. So we asked 200 contactees one question, and it was about politics.
Mm.
And basically the grades were like, your politics are too dumb to interfere with. It's like, you know, he said it's like training an untrainable animal. They see brightness in our future, but we also scared the bejesus out of them. They see that, you know, they see our technological advancement. So this is what really scares all the aliens out there. You want to know what it is? So if you look at us for the last 5,000 years, you will see one thing: our technological advancements are in leaps and bounds. But we, the people, are still the same people from 5,000 years ago. We still think the same way. We haven't become an empathetic society yet. We haven't moved past the part where we worry about each other instead of our own individual asses. And unfortunately, that's where we are today. We still war, we still fight, we still kill. Hell, we're still thinking of better ways to kill each other, not better ways to save each other. We spend more money on killing each other than we spend on saving each other. And think about that from a race from outside looking in, going, ooh, okay. Yeah, these are really bright people, aren't they? But, you know, there's always been stories of other races there, and somebody might sneak in there once a grade's found and they evicted immediately. They're like, this is my plan, and get the bleep. Because then the way you really know this is all you have to do is look at the ancient world. You don't see them in any statues. You don't see them in any pictures. You don't see them in any hieroglyphs. You don't see them in any of that stuff. You see reptilians, grays, and humans, and nothing else. Even all the way up, you can go to the Mesoamericans, and even Native Americans will show you pretty much the same exact aliens. Because that's the only ones really coming.
Because maybe they're just the ones that are residing here already. It doesn't maybe count all of the interdimensional ones or multidimensional ones that are coming in through portals. Not everything comes in through a craft.
Not everything's allowed on our planet.
We may not have any say in that.
No,
it's
actually,
funny how you think humans.
No, think about it. Grays, when grays abduct you, they pull you out of the time and space. So yes, I think they could stop anybody crossing dimensions in here. I don't think it'd be a big deal for them.
I don't know.
I definitely know the council
all the time, Joe. There are cryptids that do it all the time. There are.
I think that's just something the Greys let in for trickling fun.
I don't know.
Because I guarantee you, there's nothing right now.
Viewers have seen this from all over the world.
And why do you think we fire remote viewers? Because they're dumbasses.
Oh, jeez.
That's why we use telepaths.
Yo, Bubbles.
That's why we dumbass. If you're a remote viewer, you got fired. We no longer need your services because we found better ways. We found that remote viewers were not near as accurate as they said they were, so we switched to telepaths.
Oh boy!
Not me. That's the U.S. Navy and U.S. Air Force did it. And guess what, people? It's not even a top secret program. They will tell you they got rid of remote viewers because why? And Ed Dames will tell you who was in charge. Colonel Ed Dames, who was in charge of remote viewers, will tell you the accuracy was about 50-50.
Farsight Institute is still using them and training them.
I'm sure some more.
Very successfully.
Sure some are more. I'm sure they say they're successful. I would put a telepath up against a remote viewer any day of the week. And I would bet all the money I have that the telepath will whip them into submission instantly.
Well, for sure. But again, if you are a telepath, is going to pick up something that is, remote viewers who are given targets that are on another planet. Your telepath is not picking that up.
No, yes, they are, because all telepaths or remote viewers are just enhanced. That's all they are. Remote viewing is it's like an empath. Right. Empaths are also telepaths. Empaths is just a lower form of a telepath. Remote viewing is just a lower form of a telepath. That's just abilities that telepaths. That's why they want telepaths, because they're all in one packages. You don't want the remote viewers because they're limited.
Y'all better run. That's all I gotta say.
Look, I've worked with remote viewers.
We have other questions. Okay.
Take the experience for what it is.
Before we get too far ahead. Lurer, he goes, could it be, we're talking about the blood type again. I just don't want to get too far ahead without answering. Could it be that my father was an O blood type because of his Irish heritage? Because most of us come from South America, or most come from South America.
Well, it's funny you say that, because green eyes, which is a mutation, just like RH negative is, and just like blue eyes are, which are pretty dominant in that part of the world. And RH negative is pretty dominant in that part of the world. Now, when I say that, I'm saying 15, 18, 20%. We're not talking anything really bigger than that, but still, it's pretty dominant for a new blood strain. So remember, this blood strain is 40,000 years old, and it's already managed to get 18% hold on our population. So in general, Rh negative people tend to be much more telepathic than Rh positive people are, quite a bit more. They tend to their senses tend to be much more heightened. It's simply the next step in evolution, is all it is. And what they're doing is to make sure no one gets left behind. Because all my Rh positive people always ask me the same thing: we're getting left. No, you're not. So the Rh negative people are backbreeding with the Rh positive, which is creating a new generation. So the Rh negative people will eventually bring those same qualities back to the Rh positive people, and our society will keep moving forward. Because remember, Rh negative does not share a gene with the rhesus monkey. Only Rh positive does. So it shows you right there there's a diversion in the species. Okay,
and it's only humans. It's not like animals, basically.
So it's a little bit different. So there is a difference between Rh positive and Rh negative people in a lot of different ways. And it does seem to be the next evolution in man. Now, by saying that, it doesn't mean they're going to run off and conquer the world or anything like that. It just means that somewhere along the line, either ET, God, or Gaia decided we needed this to keep moving forward without stagnation. That's all it is. It's and the green eyes are just a side effect. Well, but think about this one. Why are there more green and blue-eyed people in charge of the world in politics, and why are so many of them in music and TV? When browns outnumber them 80 to 20. Why is that, people? Got to make you wonder. So why is so few people, 15 or 18% of the world, controlling the majority of the world? They're the new genes. Oh man, that's scary. It might be the Drax. I'm telling you, it might be the Drax.
Right. Okay. Let me
Get
get some more.
What was that? Who texted me that? Oh, no, I got a lot of friends that are remote viewers. I get to pick on them. That's why.
Is there anything new on tall whites? That's another question.
The last time I had just recently talked, well, not just recently, about a year and a half ago, I talked to a state trooper, and he just retired in Nevada. He used to work at the gaming tables. He says that he's actually been able to make contact like Charles Hall did, and he's allowed to go visit them at the base and mess with the children. So first thing anybody will tell you about the tall whites, they're very, 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 very protective of their kids. They will kill you if you do something stupid. Oh, they will. Charles Hall went into great detail about it, but he's not the only one. But this guy said that the government likes them to have regular interactivity with humans. He said now over the years, because of Charles Hall, there's been several that come hang out on a base, go places with him and stuff like that. So they become maybe friends is too strong of a word, but at least interested in us. And they're not. And when you talk about the tall whites on an order of magnitude above us, they're not maybe 5,000 years ahead of us. They're not like the Greys, who are probably 1 billion years ahead of us. That look at the world, at the universe differently than we do. These guys are closer to us. It's like the black-eyed children, or black-eyed people you meet on the ships, who are just like us, except they got black eyes. They're even roughly around the same advancements as we are. They live on a planet almost like ours. People, what's funny about that is people on their planet they see colored-eyed people because everybody there has dark eyes, and of course we call them the black-eyed people. Now, before anybody hates me, I'm not saying that all black-eyed things are aliens, but a lot of these are. They're just they just look like us with black eyes, and they're a lot like us in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never heard of any of them have different color hair. Usually, I just hear their hair is dark.
Okay, so here's another question. I am getting to everybody. I will get there. Which continent did the Greys show up on first?
Best we can tell, they showed up in Egypt first. It seems like that's the very first place there's any hieroglyphs about them, and they showed up. So once the reptilians and humans sort of got into it, because the reptilians started stealing their women and making them pregnant, they got a little pissed. So the council actually sent the Greys here because
they're killing me.
Hey, look, I'm sorry. They're about to start an intergalactic war over some whatever you want to call it. And so they sent the Greys. But that is really why they sent the Greys, to keep the reptilians from getting into a war. And it's funny because this is not the only place you see reptilians and humans interfering with each other. So jump across the continent to Nazca. So the Naskins were talking about reptilians, but boarding their children to look like human aliens. What was going on there? So that was an interesting place, and that's there's been a couple of places it seems like the reptilians and humans were on the verge of maybe getting into a nasty little fight. And even the Greys swear that the reptilians are Aquarian. They say they're Aquarian society. They don't like to fight. Even though they look like they could fight pretty damn well to me, but still, if the Greys say, we're going to have to go with what the Greys say. And people always ask me about the Greys. So, yeah, the 3-foot Greys are cool, but really and truly, the Greys you want to watch out for is the 7-foot ones.
The tall Greys.
Yeah, they got the Queen, which is around 9 foot, but the escorts are always in the 7-foot range, and you do not want to mess with them. Their job is really basically to cater to the Queen and protect her. They got the 5-6 foot ones, but they're just like the middleman, making sure the little guys are doing what they're supposed to be, making the 7-foot guys make sure they got what they need. I mean, they're like a middleman is really what they are. But and there does seem to be a beehive type society there. Everybody's servicing the Queen. It's
like a whole hive mentality, work as a collective, and
they're all interconnected. They all are each other's head all the time. So it's got to be some serious. Oh, you can call it whatever you want. I mean, the picture somebody drew of me, I'm not sure what I would call it. I guess you could call her Queen because it seemed to be running things, but I'm not sure what it was. It was kind of scary looking, actually. It looked like a cross between a praying mantis and and some other weird ass looking insect. It was. I mean, you could tell it was a gray, but when you seen it in the face, but it was still kind of spooky looking. I wouldn't get close to them. She'll tell you that much.
Tamara says, "What is the strangest investigation you've done?"
Oh, I've done a lot of those, but there's been some that have turned out to be heartbreaking. There's some that have turned out to be exhilarating. There's some that turned out to let me know that I had gifts that I did not know I had. So, but when you get right down to it, well, here's one for you. This is just an everyday ICAR case. So, lady contacts us. So no one gets, unless you know someone who knows me, no one gets to contact me directly. But so this lady contacts the organization. One of the field investigators picks up the case, reads it, reviews it, sends it up to one of the investigators who read it and sent it up to one of the state directors, who called the lady, did an investigation, and got all the information. And then the lady said she'd like to be hypnotized and either voice draft or polygraph while she was being hypnotized. Well, like these kind of cases right off the bat. So we get the case going. So we got her sitting in a chair, and there's about 4 people in the room because we have strict rules that it has to be multiple people when we're doing a regression. So we get it in, we get her going, we get her going, and everything in the house is like flickering, jittering. You could even hear what sounded like electrical, like zzz, every once in a while. So we get everything calmed down. We get through the initial part of the hypnosis, where I'm getting ready to walk her down so she can start telling us what's going on. So second layer, we're down second layer, and she just starts chirping or making this weird sound. And I'm like, man, I know I've heard this sound before. And as she's doing it, everything in the house is just kind of twitching and itching and scritching. And I noticed her animals were acting really, really, really weird to this sound. So about 3 minutes go by, 4 minutes go by, the place goes dark, and she's still making this sound. And everything, all the audio, because some of it's on battery, it's all still running, including the video. And I feel something like bump me, like brush by me. And I said, who just walked by? And I picked up the flashlight. Everybody's still sitting in their same place. So right, she said something, and then she went back to making this weird noise, and then you heard another like clicking and pipping. I was like, what the hell? And her daughter flicks on the camera, and guess what's standing in front of her? 4 foot.
Do we want to know?
He's 4 or 5 foot. He's definitely a gray. And he's got these really sharp looking teeth, and he's twitching back at her, and she's they're speaking. I've never heard a gray speak before. I mean, telepathically, yes. In a voice, no. And they're going back and forth, going back and forth, going back and forth. And the whole thing is just, and we're filming it.
So what do they sound like?
It sounds like a dolphin. And we didn't realize it until another guy of ours brought up, there's a video clip where there's some saucer over the water, and the grays are kind of floating towards it, and there's a bunch of dolphins down there chirping. Well, you didn't realize it until now, but the grays are actually chirping back at the dolphins. They're talking to each other. So a lot of people are thinking, we always thought the grays were reptilians or this, that, or apes. They may have been related to a dolphin in some shape, form, or fashion.
Well, do you remember what you and I talked about with the Order of the Dolphin?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
With the scientists and where
so
they
dolphins may
believed they
be much
could
older.
communicate.
Yeah. They must be. They may be much older and much smarter than we realize they
Well,
are.
Carl Sagan thought when he put it together that the scientists believed that dolphins could communicate with ET, but gray specifically. So you are not far off if there's any truth.
Well, no, I mean, so there's a good video. There's more than one video about this. At least two times this was caught on film, both down in Florida, though once in the Gulf, once in the Atlantic, but both of them from Florida. Octopuses are definitely aliens. All scientists think they're aliens with their 3 brains and shit. But anyway, so this is going on, and so we're all just kind of froze because this thing is literally. So I'm sitting like this. So actually, I'm sitting like this, and she's sitting about maybe 3 feet in front of me, and he's standing in between us. So the chair had wheels on, so I pushed it so I could slide around this way because I wanted to see him from the side of his face. And that's when I noticed he had sharp, prickly teeth. Now I had heard that before, but I'd never really seen it, and I'd never really seen anything that I could remember this up close because this is early on when we first started doing investigation. This was just creepy, and then the thing just kind of looked over at me, and I get this sense in my head: was that good enough for you? And poof, he was gone. Or it was. Well, I want to say he was gone because it gave off a sense. I've never seen any genitalia on a gray, and no one I know has either, but they do feel male or female when people are talking to them. I hear people talk about it all the time. And this definitely had kind of a male sense to it.
And do you have like any odors associated with all of that? Like do people, because sometimes people do confuse paranormal experiences with ET experiences because
they do.
a lot of similar odors.
There's a lot of it. No, not this one. This one was just, it was actually what you got was, whenever it left. So at first we thought, well, maybe it was beamed out, but then everybody remembered there was a sense of like how can I say, like a brush of fresh air, but it was more like something was moving really fast and drawing air behind it. Is what it. So that's probably what happened. We didn't actually see it move. We just knew it was gone. They still have the tape. It's still in the vault somewhere, and it was really, really creepy. So a couple of days later, we're over by her house, and she said, I want to show you a videotape I made yesterday. And so she pulls out this videotape. She went down to the Gulf, went out on the pier and started chirping, and dolphins showed up.
That's crazy.
And obviously, they knew it. She had no idea what she was saying, but she said, I kind of think this is what I was saying, but I'm not sure. She said, but no, they were definitely chirping and talking. And I've seen, we've been in Gulf Breeze a couple times. They swim up with Linda. They swim up with my kid. It's very strange how they act, especially with people that's been taken. It's almost like they know. It's like they can sense it, or maybe they've been taken. I don't know, because I mean, dolphins. People forget if you look at a dolphin skeleton, its bottom fins are 2 sets of 5 fingers or 5 toes. Its side fins are 5 each, just fingers. It's got a straight spine, which means at one time it walked upright. And it's got a brain 1.5 size at times with ours, with at least 2 additional senses that we don't have.
They're very clever.
Yeah, so
I mean, they've rescued people. They get protective of pregnant women who are in,
and they've actually healed kids with diseases. I have 2, Dolly, and it's kind of strange how it happens. It's just where I'm living right now. One night I was messing around. It was New Year's Eve actually. I said, man, I just want to see a dolphin around the first. And I kept thinking about it. And I see this fin. I'm thinking, oh, shit, there's a shark in my bayou. So I went looking for my gun because I was going to shoot the damn thing.
What?
And, I thought it was a shark, not a dolphin. I'm going to shoot a dolphin. But so it's really, really heavy because it gets really foggy here, especially around. So I see it again, and then I heard something, and then I noticed the way it broke the water. I knew right then and there it was a dolphin. So I'm out there with the camera. I'm telling Joe and Linda about it. They're like, "You're crazy. Ain't no dolphin in the bayou." Sure enough, they come out there. He is chirping away. And then they went out there with a cane, just popped the deck 3 times. It came right up and started chirping away. It was. It didn't want to leave either when they were trying to take it out. It was a female. She didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay here. There's lots of food here. Everybody talked to her all the time. She was happy. But they drug her out of here, bleeding and shit. Caused a big commotion in the community. because of the way they took her. But those kind of cases are weird because you're not sure what to make of it because it throws another element into the case. So you're thinking about grays and what they're doing. All of a sudden you realize, well, wait a minute, they're talking to the dolphins like we would talk to your puppy or something, or even more than that. So that's something else you have to add into the research. And then there's those cases that sound like something out of a horror movie. Being grabbed by the foot in your bed, being drug up and just hanging upside down, being pulled up through the ceiling, thrown onto a
Those
thing.
are pretty frightening.
Yeah, so one of these cases, so one of the very first cases, or second case I investigated was this lady. It was a husband and wife were in their house, no kids. And he said, I remember this thing standing at the foot of the bed, and then I heard my wife screaming, and I looked, and this thing had her by her ankle, dragging her out the ceiling. And I looked up and something just grabbed me by mine and was dragging me right behind her. And he said, I kept thinking, they're children. How can they handle me this big? Because he, 3-foot gray. And he's thinking, they're children, and drug him up on it. He said, now remember, we got to the ship and they're on the ceiling holding me upside down. I'm thinking, how can this little thing hold me? The guy's like 250. And he's like, I don't understand. And he said, and then all of a sudden I seen this bubble coming out the floor. The bubble got taller and then it started spreading. He said it made a damn table and they just dropped me on the table. When it dropped me, it just completely engulfed me. He said it completely covered me. He said it went in my nose, went in my eyes, went in my ears, went in my mouth. He said if there was a hole, it was going in there. And he said, but I could still breathe. And he said, and my wife was the same way. And, we were mouth wide open, eyes wide open, just flipped out. And he said, we had no clothes at that point. He said, however it would happen, the clothes were removed. He said, then this thing came out of the wall. He said, there was nothing on the wall. And then this tube came out of the wall and then it split in half. One went towards her, one went towards me. And he said, then all kind of instruments started coming out of it. And he said, next thing I knew, there was needles. He said, not needles, but there was these things going everywhere in my sinuses and my eyes and my arms and my veins. And he said, other places I don't want to talk about. He said it felt painful, but then yet I didn't feel anything. He said, I don't know how to describe it. And he said, and my wife is trying to scream, but you can't really because they got that stuff in your mouth. He's like a dentist off when they pop your mouth open and feel it for like crap. He said, it's kind of like that. And then he said, then the doctor came up and said something telepathically, oh, we need to realign this, and took his ankle off.
Ew.
Took it over to a table, did something to it, played around with it, brought it back and attached it.
Insane.
And then he said, I look over. He said, my wife's entire uterus is floating above her. And the doctor's moving her around. He said, at first I thought it was a hologram. Then I realized it wasn't. It was it. He said, the doctor's moving around, messing with stuff, fixing stuff, and he puts it back in. He said, after that, I just blacked out. Next thing I remember, it was morning. And he said, I did not want to talk to my wife about it. I was scared shitless. He said, Joe, I'm 6'2", about 260. He said, I didn't want to talk to anybody.
And was his wife aware of it, or she just
totally? She was totally awake the whole time, just like he was.
Crazy.
And she said he said she finally, they went to a restaurant. She just finally broke down in a restaurant and said, this was real. We need to talk to somebody. And someone told them to contact me. And I was like, and then I said, well, we do a lot of stuff. And the guy goes, whatever polygraph, he said, I'll pay for the polygraph, voice stress, whatever it is. I want it. I'm telling you. And it was. They passed both polygraph and voice stress. Both times right off the bat. I mean, hardcore pass. No, you could tell by listening to them, there was no doubt this happened to them, and they didn't know what to make of it. And he said, then it started happening on a regular basis. And then all of a sudden one day, I remember being taken, and I'm just sitting in a room, and just other people in there. It's talking to me, and Greg comes by talking to me like all of a sudden we're best buds or some shit. It's like it was like 10 years of horror, and then guess what? We're friends now. She said he not only knew how to take it, he was in his 20s though, and that fits. That tracks when they like to do their harsh stuff is in your 20s. He was just, and he said, and then he had kids, and then he realized one night, sitting on his couch, when he heard one of his kids screaming, that it was their turn. And he said, I flipped out so bad. He said, I don't know how they restrained me.
That would be different. That would be a lot to take.
He said, I just instinctively ran towards him. He said, all I remember was just being in the middle of the air, being pulled in each direction, like something was pulling me almost apart and holding me there. And he said, I can still hear my wife screaming, please, please don't take my children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, of course, they didn't listen, but
That's very, very
it's
difficult.
so that's people who that's contactees because they have full conscious memory of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And and I don't want to leave everybody just thinking it's always a horrible thing, because there are good contacts. There are
Mm-hmm.
places where they let you work with the children. There's times you can go into reptilians, what we would call museums, which is stunningly fabulous. There's times when you can interact with other aliens. There's times when you can be on the big ships, interact with a bunch of different kind of aliens that are technologically around the same where we are.
Mm-hmm.
On the Gray's mothership, all the motherships, from what I understand, there's at least 100 races or more that are close to us, and that might be what the politicians are all talking about. Because on these ships, you are allowed to interact with them. They're just not allowed to come here.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not allowed to go to their home world either. But on board the ships, and there are places you can go sit in those hologram books. It probably looks just like home.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about that. But then, it just seems like there's a time where it's some really harsh stuff, and then it seems to be a time where it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Where, and then some people, they start training depending on your willingness. You might get offered a program. Sometimes they may offer you a program so that you can bring your kids off world with you instead of leaving for whatever happens here.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. There's different things they do, and there's different programs they offer. Some people might learn how to fly. Some people might learn how to do a lot of different things. It's somewhere along the line, they really want us to be part of this great galactic community, but not who we are today.
Mm-hmm.
So they're pushing us and hoping to get us to change. And,
Mm-hmm.
and if it takes nuking the planet, I don't think they'll stop it. I think they'll just let it go and hope that the next species that comes up will be the right one. Because I feel like for them, in some ways, it's like little proud parents. Every now and then you'll hear about a Gray getting all happy, like when one of their subjects get really telepathic or get into their head and ask them questions and get them to answer. Like, oh yeah, that's really. And then of course they get pissed about it, like any good parent should. But you're still proud that you did it. Like, oh, you see what they did.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that go on, and then there's the ones. So these stories are kind of rough, and you can go watch. Now I forgot the name of the TV series. It's a Spielberg series, Taken. So whoever did Taken, there's parts of Taken that are very accurate. They're just very, very accurate. So I know on a few occasions where military people, or I should say military abductee people, have taken, or just say MILAB people, and have taken them and have pushed them to a point where a Gray or a reptilian will show up. And let's just say the people there no longer exist. Sometimes with a thought, and this has been portrayed more than one time, where a Gray just came in with a thought and basically blew everyone apart in the room except for the contactee. And they're even particularly harder on telepaths that do it, because they feel like telepaths should know better because they're empathic as well.
So it makes you wonder then why it continues to happen when they know that they could be dealing with a more aggressive
money,
species.
power, and information. That's what humans. Anything you can get from them can result in. As far as we know, AI came from there. We know that the microchip, aircraft aluminum, and probably fiber optics came from there, from the Roswell crash. So it's we want to try, we want to know. It's just the Grays and the reptilians and humans have pretty much told everybody on this planet they feel like they need to tell. When there's new children born into those groups, they tell them. But really and truly, the other 7 billion, they don't really. They think of us as cannon fodder. There's no need for us. We're not going to be part of the galactic community. Everyone alive today, except for the contactees, none of them will be part of the galactic community. They'll all be dead long before that happens. So there's no really need to tell us anything. For them, we look at it one way, but they look at it a whole different way. They're like, why bother? They're not going to understand it anyway. And all I'm do is might start an early war or something. So there's no real need to tell them. People tell me, well, if they would just tell us, we'd all get together. I said, no, we might not all get together. We might all start catching us Grays to get advanced technology, which might start a war, which might get us all wiped off the surface of the planet. I said, in the end, their technology is far, far, far more advanced than ours is. And they definitely feel like they're here to babysit. Everybody says the same thing when it comes to grays. They're here to babysit. They're keeping the other aliens out. They're making sure because the reptilians and humans have a claim on this planet. That's why they can't throw them off, because it started before the council got involved. But once the council sent the grays, it became a closed planet. They were like, nope, we're sending the bad boys over there to babysit now, which I'm sure pisses the grays off because they don't want to be here to babysit.
Mm-hmm.
They would rather be out there blowing stuff up or conquering races or doing something more interested in babysitting a bunch of heathens.
Mm-hmm.
We're gifted in a lot of ways, but for every gift we have something nasty.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get around that?
So I guess it brings us to this then. On that note, Heidi says, thoughts on the collective consciousness and Earth advancing a dimension.
So, but what collective consciousness are we talking about? And the reason I ask you that is because the grays aren't letting us in their collective consciousness. They're like, no humans. And I know the reptilians and human aliens aren't either, because we wouldn't understand what we were seeing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're only talking about a collective consciousness with us, then that really doesn't really help us any. It doesn't help us to move forward, because it's not allowing us to see things from someone else's point of view.
Mm-hmm. So
we need a consciousness that we can access, like maybe a race that's along the same evolutionary scale, but looks at the world differently than we do, because they were raised or built differently than we do. Something like that may make a difference, but the grays might come down and visit y'all in your consciousness every once in a while, but and then let's not forget, people, a lot of spirit guys are grays. I know y'all don't like to hear that, but a lot of spirit guys are extraterrestrials. They're not actually spirit guys. It's just a way of getting you to do what they want you to do. Keep that, and it's easy to find out, but I'm not going to tell y'all because I don't want nobody to get disenchanted. Well, the first time I realized this, I kind of felt bad about the person because of the way they believed. It made me feel kind of sad, because my job isn't here to make y'all think anything other than what you're thinking. It's just to let you know that we're not always seeing what we think we're seeing. Well, it started with a good friend of mine and his Native American guide, and he was cool. He's always telling me about this. And then one day his Native American guide said something, and I was like, wait a minute. That sure sounds like a gray. I said, so let me ask you next time. I'm going to give you a bunch of questions to ask your guide. He said, Joe, you can't question. I said, if it's not a real guide, if you can't question him. He was mad at me for a full year after that. He said after about the fifth question, he just manifested into a gray. I was like, shit. He said, all I could think of at that moment is I wanted to slap Joe. And he said, I'm pretty sure.
I understand that sentiment.
Yes. And he said, I'm pretty sure that
slap Joe too.
He said, and I'm pretty sure the gray was kind of smiling. He's like yeah. I said, so nowadays, I let people know that it's possible. It may not be true, may not be you. You might have just what you have as a good spirit guide. But remember, it could be a gray.
Well, I mean, it could be other ETs too.
It also could be Michelle messing with y'all, just so y'all know. She likes to do that kind of stuff.
Never know.
She gets those evil laughs. You got to watch out for sure.
Yeah, well, maybe, but
oh no, I didn't play it. Oh well.
Well,
somewhere on YouTube, there's a thing Coast to Coast did for me about the blood type study. It's it's not bad. I'm too lazy to go look for it now, but it's pretty good. It's like 3 minutes long. It's not real long. It's somewhere, I play it every once in a while. I'll probably play it Friday night.
Is it on UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials YouTube?
It probably is.
Then maybe that's where you guys have to go check it out on UFO Gods.
Yeah, go check it out. Yeah, I didn't make it. Coast to Coast made it for whatever reason. Coast to Coast felt like made it. Now, well, I know we got real short on time, so
yes,
there's a little case that I worked. So this happened on Mount Rainier in Washington State. So there was about 200 Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Well, out on a big thing. All together, I think there was about 300 people that were out there. And they were out having a good time. They'd been out, I think their goal was to be out 14 days. They were trying to get all kind of badges and stuff. Anyway, I get the phone call about a year after this happened. And this young guy calls me. He just made 18. I just made 19, actually. He starts telling me about all these military people and this stuff that went on and being taken somewhere. So then he just hangs up the phone. A couple weeks later, I get another phone call from him with somebody else there with him. And then they hang up the phone. So that time I actually got their number. So I said, but I'm not going to call back and let them. So about 3 weeks, I get a phone call from someone else in the area saying, because they had the same zip code, same prefix. And I was like, what can I help you with? Well, Mr. Joe, I don't know how to bring this up. And I hear two people in the background, and one's definitely older. And he said, just tell him. I'm like, what are you telling me? And he said, well, can I put you on speakerphone? I was like, sure, put me on speakerphone. So I hear this older voice come up. He said, well, we were on Mount Rainier. We were at X amount of feet. And there's a cave not far from where we were. And we were camping not too far from it. He said, about a mile from it. And he said, out of nowhere, late in the evening, and just before dusk, a bunch of Jeeps and trucks came out of there with military soldiers and surrounded us. And I'm telling the kids not to panic. He said all the adults got together and surrounded the kids and got the kids in there and said, don't panic, don't panic. And he said, we're just standing there. The military wasn't doing anything. They wouldn't even say anything. And he said, then in the middle truck, he said, these creatures, it's his words, not mine. He said, these creatures, he said, I'd say was about 5 foot tall, 3 to 5 foot tall, some of them. And he said, they had these weird looking eyes and this big head. And he said, it didn't look like they were wearing clothes. And next thing I know, all of us are sideways floating. And we're just in a trail, and they're stacking us. He said, in the truck, on top of each other, like this much room between each other, about like that, and in the trucks. So he said, and then the kid starts talking. He said, and I was trying to cry. I was trying to cry, just no tears would come out. And the other girl says, I know, I was trying. Then I was trying to move my arms. Nothing would move. And she said, then the truck started moving. And I remember as the trucks were moving, we were sliding back and forth. I was scared I was going to slide out the back of the truck. So they get in this room. He said, it looks like a giant hangar. And she said, there was a silver disc there, huge silver disc there. And they started loading them on board. And she says, I remember we were all in these two rooms, just still floating. And there was some mist released. And then next thing I know, I'm somewhere else. I'm in another room and I'm standing up, but I still can't move. And we're all in line to get these exams on these tables. He said they had what she called the stirrup machine, which I've actually seen. I've actually heard of it before too. So they're running them through all of them. And something happened. 2 of them were killed, and it was official. 2 of them died on the mountain. They never did find the bodies, but they were listed as missing and died. And she said, we witnessed, she said, it looked like they were trying to escape from whatever was going on. And it killed them. She said, I don't even think it was, she said, the one person, it just looked like it sliced into like 5 slices. And they couldn't stop it before it did it. And the other one said the way I guess he lurched, and when he lurched, it just kind of sliced him in half. She said there was no blood or anything involved, which was really strange. And she said, I kind of blacked out after that. She said, I heard someone mumbling next to me, and I kind of blacked out. And she said, I wasn't sure what to do. And she said, it felt like days and hours and weeks because they were doing all kind of experiments. And they were rolling us around, walking us around. She said, I never ate anything. I remember I was starving when we finally got back. I was 5 pounds lighter than when I left. And I had 1 day of memories for the 15 days they had been gone. Because at this point, they had been gone 15 days. So I called them up. They got a bunch of them together. We did a big call. And the more I heard, the worse it got. It just got worse and worse. So I said, you know what, I'm going to fly up. And I said, I'll arrange for somebody up there to do polygraphs. I said, I'll voice stretch and we'll see what we can do in regression. The more we regressed, the more horrible things we heard. Forced breeding, slicing pieces off, removing embryos after they had been fertilized, all kind of stuff. It didn't even sound like a regular kind of thing with the Greys. It just sounded like something else. It almost sounded like it was a rogue group or something. And or maybe somehow or another they were tied in with the military, because they said the military had a presence there most of the time.
Yeah, that's something.
And so she said then they remember being back at the campsite and they couldn't find these 2 people, and they searched. They said they searched the mountain for days, but she realized later on, under hypnosis, what had happened. And then a couple other people also verified the story. So whatever happened to him sounded like it was pretty horrible. I imagine the cleanup crew was probably there.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really heard anything like that before, but she said it was she was like almost like a movie. It was like slice, 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 and you seen the person just slide apart, one piece at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no blood. I guess it cauterized the wound. She said it didn't look like a laser. She said, but I guess that's what it was. And the other guy it was a girl and a guy. And it was like, and they never found body parts or anything. I guess the Greys kept it or did whatever with it. But they're so freaked out at that point. So then I said, you know what? I got a lot of good investigators in Seattle. I said, I know y'all spread out around Washington. I said, but I'm going to assign some people to y'all to keep an eye on y'all to see what's going on. It sounds like at least until they were in their 30s, they were having some pretty horrific stuff. It sounded like they were really putting them through their paces mentally and physically. And it almost sounded like what goes on in England. So, oh no, there's more horrible cases. Now, but y'all aren't ready for that kind of stuff. I can't scare them.
Yeah, we're out of time as well. We'll have to do a part 2.
I can't scare me, show, because nothing scares them. If I do, everybody's going to be like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, no. I'm pretty laid back about most things. Nothing really surprises
yes,
me.
Miss would sleep with Blad's blood. Blad was probably RH negative.
A girl's got to eat. A girl's got to eat. Just saying.
It's well, no, we just get warmed up. But go check out the video. It's a little video. You can check it out. It's like I said, it's 3 minutes. It's just talking about the blood types. Yeah. It's remember, people, we don't ever feel like you're left behind or you're being left behind because you're O positive or RH positive, because you're not. It's just right now O negatives are something different, and slowly but surely they're changing our planet. Because in the old days, I would imagine you pretty much seen blue or green eyes with the RH negative people, but now it's RH positive too. So it's already started to transfer over to the positive. So whatever it is mixing between the two populations. So that's what it's supposed to do.
There's so much information. And guys, go check out ICAR. You want to give them the website, Joe?
It's ICAR@cox.net. Oh wait, no, that's wrong. Yeah, no,
that's your email. That's the website. The website.
Oh shit! I remember the website. It's it's ICAR1 damn it, ICAR1.com. I'm sorry, I couldn't get it out of there. It's real easy.
I don't know how you get through the day without me.
Well, since we're changing things, what was I? Oh, I was adding all kind of stuff today. I ain't showed Michelle yet. So. No, I ain't working on a website. Somebody else is doing that. So don't even start on me about it.
Well, check it out. There's a lot of pictures on the site. There's a lot of content on the site. There's a lot of stuff.
This is where I was. In case anybody wanted to know where I disappeared off for 10 days, this is where I was. See that? Right? As if you see that ship? That's one of the top artists at Disney did that.
Great.
So now we have good artists that we can use from time to time. We're going to get some banners done. But we had good ones on the network too. So it's like we have a wealth of talent at our strokes.
We do. We do. So we are at the top of the hour. So of course, big thank you to the old Grand Poobah, Joe Montaldo.
Yeah, I wasn't even wearing a tie. Look at that.
Yeah. And next week, guys, Tuesday on Beyond the Outer Realm is going to be an amazing show. Simon Bone, all the way from the UK, will be discussing his book, Verified Near-Death Experiences, Proof of an Afterlife. That'll be interesting. Wednesday, another first-time guest on the show, Debbie Datchinger, with Close Encounters of the Ancient Kind, ET Interactions with Humanity. That's good, yeah. Yeah, she's wonderful. Thursday, we bring back Constance Victoria Briggs. We're going to be talking about Stargates, USOs, hidden bases, all this fun stuff, of course. So we know we're going to have a really good time. So big thank you to our sponsors, Folgers Coffee. If you haven't been drinking Folgers, you should be. Shame
I was
on
just
you.
drinking some a little while ago.
There we go. Folgers. We've got Justin Snicker. We've got Steve McGinnis. Thank you. And you have been watching us on United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3, 107.7. And we shall see you all next week. It's Easter weekend, guys. Have a great long weekend, a great holiday. Stay safe because I want to see you all back here next week. So much love to you all. Thank you to our incredible chat room. As always, you guys just rock. So pat yourselves on the back and give yourselves a kudos because you have it coming from me for sure. So good night, everyone. And thank you to the new faces. Thank you to the old. And we'll see you next week. Good night.